According to the Harvard Law School research on corporate governance and financial regulation, as of last year, more than 500,000 companies participated in a business model across 15 different markets called corporate social responsibility. In fact, more than 500 companies, Fortune 500 companies, spend more than $15 billion a year on CSR activities. And that number is consistently rising as businesses are seeing an increase in company performance, talent recruitment, and public retention. Hi, my name is Brianna Miller, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the response to this responsibility and how it pertains to public relations and why it's vital for public relations professionals to know how this response is impacting their business. So before I begin, I'm going to talk briefly about 3 points I'm going to be talking about throughout my presentation. I'm going to talk to you guys about my journey to public relations in the public relations department at Biola. I'm going to be talking to you about CSR, corporate social responsibility is known as CSR, and how that pertains to public relations and why it's necessary for public relations professionals to utilize this. And I'm going to be talking to you about how this is going to apply to my aspirations as a public relations professional and what this looks like coming from a Christian university as a public relations professional. So my journey to public relations was definitely one that was a little rocky. I graduated from high school in 2013, and I was very passionate about helping other people. My siblings and I started a nonprofit called Lace Up Stand Up, and it's an anti-bullying nonprofit. And we always had this drive and passion to help others. And on the other hand, I really was interested in fashion, and I thought that I would be able to do that in the fashion industry. And so I attended the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandise and majored in merchandise marketing, and quickly found out that that was not for me, and went ahead and transferred to Biola. And I really thought that there was no way that that public relations, that fashion could help other people. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna transfer to Biola University and major in psychology and become a therapist because I thought that was it. And so I went through my whole underdivision classes. I did all my Bibles, I did all of my general electives, and realized that it was not for me, and I really felt like the Lord was not calling me to psychology because I didn't take an upper division class yet, and I was running out of room. And so I was like, I really want to do business. I feel like I want to help people through business. I don't know how to do that. And so I was looking through the courses at Biola and the different majors that they recommend, and I found public relations, and I remember looking through the class catalog and absolutely loving it. So I immediately made an appointment with Dr. Kim, and she convinced me, like I know she did, and many of you, and she convinced me to go into public relations, and I absolutely loved it. And so that's kind of how I came to the department, and I went through this whole curriculum in a year, which is pretty fast. So I am definitely excited to be graduating soon. So now that I've talked to you a little bit about my journey, I'm going to talk to you guys more about the topic at hand, which is corporate social responsibility and how that plays into my journey after Biola. So before I begin, what is corporate social responsibility? I'm going to give you guys a brief definition. This is from the Webster's Dictionary about what corporate social responsibility is. It is the business model whereby companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations and interactions with their publics. And then Forbes magazine put this in a very eloquent way. They said, furthermore, the ethical component of CSR is comprised by most businesses and implies moral and ethical individual managers that are an important factor in a firm's CSR practices. So there is an ethical and moral component, a sense of social responsibility to a business, and that makes them want to participate in this business model. So why CSR? Just to kind of give you guys a brief kind of component to this. CSR is practiced in a lot of different companies. Like I just said, more than 500,000 companies in 2016 participated in this business model. It's so crazy. But just to name a few, Microsoft, Walt Disney, Google, and BMW are tied for the #1 spot as it pertains to the positive response they have to their CSR model. Google actually has donated $300 million in CSR efforts. So it is a huge platform that companies are basing off of. And I talked a little bit about why I really wanted to help people. And so I was thinking, how can I do this in public relations? And I was talking to my dad one time, and I was talking to him about this necklace I'm wearing. It's called 31 Bits. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this company. It helps women in Uganda. Isn't that so cool? And I love it. And he was like, yeah, that company probably participates in the thing called corporate social responsibility. And so he kind of described to me what it was. And I was like, yes, I want to work for a company that does that. And then he asked me a question that I wasn't really expecting. He said, how much was that necklace? And I was like, oh, it was like $48. And he was like, you're going to spend $48 on a necklace? And I was like, yeah, because it helps other people and it's great. And he was like, how do you know it's actually helping people? And that really caught me off guard, because our generation is so used to just trusting that companies are helping other people when they say they are. But I realized that there was a generational difference. There was a gap. There was a miscommunication, because the way I perceived CSR was very different than the way that my dad's generation perceived CSR. And so I was kind of going back and forth, and I decided to conduct a study between two generations, the millennials and the baby boomers. Millennials are our generation. They're between the ages of 53, or sorry, that's baby boomers. The millennials are our generation. They're between the ages of 18 to 29, and baby boomers are generally our parents' generation. That's between the ages of 53 to 71. And so the reason why I initially chose these was because, as you can see in this graph in 2015, millennials take up the large majority of the workplace right now. It's actually one of the most highly impacted generations in the workplace, and baby boomers are going out. And so I thought this trend of 500,000 companies participating in CSR in 2016 was because the millennials they're going into the workplace and they're taking up the majority of it, and boomers are coming out. But I wanted to ask that question, why? Like, why don't boomers like CSR? Why do they feel like they can't trust them? Why is this happening? And so I created a study. I conducted informational interviews with different people. And so I did two groups, millennials and baby boomers. I talked to 6 in each group, and all of these, the individuals that participated were from different geographical locations all throughout the United States. They were in different age ranges in their generational cohort. They participated in different jobs. And so I asked them a series of questions. And some of these questions kind of included things like, is the individual more willing, are you more willing to purchase a product or service that helps the community if it costs more? And questions like that. And I came across one that I said, do you trust organizations that adapt CSR to their business model? And millennials, 84% of the people I interviewed said yes, like unequivocally yes. I completely trust them in a sense of they're actually doing what they're doing, they're authentic, they're honest, and I trust them more. I will go out of my way to participate in a company that adapts this business model. At baby boomers, 56% said yes, and there was a lot of hesitation on their end. And so immediately I was like, why? Why is this happening? And so actually, I come across something like the Red Cross controversy. I don't know if you guys remember this, but in the early 2000s during the Haiti earthquake, something happened, and it kind of shook our parents' generation a little bit and the generation below us. In the early 2000s, the American Red Cross spent a quarter of their money people donated for the Haiti earthquake on internal expenses, and that was about $125 million on internal expenses and did not go to helping the Haiti earthquake victims. And people were floored by this. A journalist actually exposed this from NPR, and people were so distrusting, and it made people not want to trust businesses that participate in this platform, because it raised the question of, if the Red Cross, a company that we have been trusting for so many generations, is doing this, what other companies are doing this? And so our parents' generation, and specifically people that were really overtaking the workplace at that moment, had a very, very low trust in companies that adapted this business model. And so this whole thing kind of made me realize that my hypothesis that there was a generational difference was completely right. There is a generational difference, and there's a miscommunication in this generational difference. But why? Why is this happening? And I realized that CSR and corporate social responsibility is powerful. It is so powerful that trust, authenticity, and honesty was at risk, and it made people for a whole generation not trust businesses that were participating in CSR because of one company. And that is crazy to me. That is so insane to me, because CSR is such an amazing business model when it's executed and it's fostered in trust and authenticity and honesty. But when it's not, it makes our parents' generation not even want to participate in any company that does that. And for public relations specialists, this is so key to know, because if your target audience was a baby boomer and you said, I think it'd be a great idea to adapt corporate social responsibility to our business model. It'd be great. Like our baby boomer generation would love it. I would respond to that and say, actually, I conducted research and that is far from the truth, and here's why. And so it's vital for us to know this. So why is this important for public relations professionals? So public relations, as many of you guys know, and you guys could even probably quote me on this, public relations is defined as public relations is the strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between an organization and their publics. And so it is important for public relations professionals to know that authenticity, trust, and honesty is so key in dealing with corporate social responsibility, because we want to build mutually beneficial relationships, and that deals with long-term, honest, and authentic relationships that are fostered in trust. And so it's key for us to know that if we don't have any of those aspects, and if we're lying about what we're actually doing, if we're adapting this business model, we will not be trusted, and our reputation and other reputations that participate in this business model will go down the drain. So I proposed another definition, and I talked about this in my defining public relations paper. I proposed that public relations, the definition should be changed to, it's a communications objective that enforces an ethical behavior which leads to a long-term and positive relationship with key publics. And I want to focus on ethics, and what I mean by ethics is trust, honesty, and authenticity. Those three values need to be rooted in CSR endeavors if you want to add this to your business plan. And so what does this mean for a Christian going out into the world? What does this mean to my life? What does this mean to other Christians that are pursuing this business model? The Lord delights in us helping other people. And we see this in Hebrews 13:16. It says, "And do not forget to do good and share with others, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God." We're called to do good, and we're called to help other people. So what does it look like? And what does it look like to do that is rooted in truth? In Proverbs 12:19 it says, "Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue is for a moment." And this verse was very, very, it was very impactful for me, because you as a company want to trust that what you're doing is the right thing, and you want to be able to commit to that fully. And if you're lying, it's only for a moment. It's the one campaign you're lying about, but your reputation could be completely trashed forever. And then John 8:32, it says, "And you know the truth, and the truth will set you free." She talked about it a little bit in the panel as well, and I thought it was so important. Even if, as a public relations professional, even if you are met with something that's unethical, we as Christians should speak truth always, especially when we're helping other people. I want to end with this note. Something that really impacted me my whole year at Biola, my very first Bible professor, Professor Lister in Theology 1, said something to me that's always stuck with me, and especially I'm going to carry on through my public relations endeavors. He said, as Christians, we're called to act differently. And that was something that was so short, and it was so impactful for me, because as Christians, as journalists, as public relations professionals, we are called to act differently, and we're called to be authentic and honest and trustworthy. So I'd now like to open up the floor for some questions.